Hi, I'm Judith Leblein. You know, the divorce rate in America continues to climb, and whether you're planning a marriage for the first time or maybe the second time, or perhaps you've hit a bump in the road in your marriage, you may be thinking about divorce. Well, with us is Marlene Browne. Her new book is The Divorce Process: Empowerment Through Knowledge. Marlene, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, why did you write a book on divorce?
Well, there are many books out there on divorce, and as a divorce lawyer since 1986, I would take stock and think, well, those aren't terribly helpful. And in fact, many clients would come into my office during their first consultation with me with these books in their hands and say, look, I don't understand what's going on. Can you help me? And I would take them through the process, and several of them said to me, as I went through my career, I think maybe you should write a book. And so finally I took the opportunity to write a book, got the contract, got the agent, and wrote the book.
Well, you know, it's sad to say that many people need it, but perhaps in getting this book, as people plan to be married, or people maybe are hitting, you know, a bump in the road,
Right.
maybe, you know, a brief period where they say, hey, where are we going? What are we going to do? Maybe this will help them. Now,
Or it might scare them into staying married.
Maybe, because, you know, and I do believe that many people stay married because they've heard horror stories with divorce, but it doesn't have to be that horrible situation. There are ways to get around it.
Right, and actually, you asked a serious question. I gave you kind of a funny answer. One of the reasons that this book I think is so different and so helpful was really since I'd say 1996 was when I started using the internet, and I wrote this book from 96 to 2001. It took that long of a period of time. And the book makes reference to a lot of internet sites, so people can learn a whole lot more than they ever could before. It used to be that divorce law was sort of arcane and mysterious, and people had to really rely upon lawyers and experts. And now there's so much more available, so people can learn and test the waters. I don't mean test the waters by getting a sort of divorce. I mean test the waters by seeing what exactly they're confronting. And that's why I think this book is special and different.
Well, that's an excellent point, because for the longest time, the only way you knew about what's involved with the divorce, if, let's say you're at a bad time in your marriage, and you really just want to explore it, you know, how hard is this? What will it cost?
Right.
You had to almost give up your anonymity, and you had to go and make an appointment. It's a scary thing to do.
Right.
So you depended on your friends, or hearsay or gossip, and I do believe a lot of people
Yellow Pages.
Yeah, or people stay trapped in a situation from the fear of a process that they don't know anything about.
Right. Well, certainly my book makes reference to a lot of free resources that are available. Every state now has an official website, and those state websites have pages dedicated to divorce law. What will the child support be? What is the law pertaining to college? And so you can certainly get yourself in a situation where you know what you're confronting, but often you do want to see an attorney as well. I don't want people just to be looking at websites, because each case is going to be a little bit different.
But just to start to understand what your state requires and what your rights are. So that makes you a better consumer when you go in and see an attorney.
And your attorney should appreciate that. Some don't, because they want to be my cup full, your cup empty. I want to have all the knowledge. But I do think that an educated consumer, of course, is the happiest client, because it can help the lawyer, it can streamline the process. The client can say, look, I'm expecting this, this, and this to happen. Do we have an agreement? And the lawyer can say, yes, that's pretty much how I would approach it. And you can go on in a happier way than if the lawyer's just dictating what to do and you're not in control. Because in divorce, you really don't have control, and that's one of the reasons people are so fearful. They don't have control. If you know more, you've got some power, it really does help people, puts their minds at ease.
I can only think of people that are in really emotional situations.
Sure.
Maybe cash is strapped.
Sure.
Maybe there is some abusive behavior. Maybe there is alcohol or a substance problem.
Yes.
That just adds to this drama and this trauma.
Well, that's hard when you're married. Multiply it by exponentially a factor of 100, a million, whatever, if you're going through a divorce. What was hard when you were together as a family becomes intolerable when you're getting divorced. So sure, that's absolutely true.
Now, there are tons of cocktail jokes about divorce attorneys. I don't have to tell them
Judith,
to you.
I've never heard them.
I'm sure no one has ever told you those.
To my face.
But how do you find a good divorce attorney that matches your temperament? You know, the one thing I hear is people say, you know what, we've grown apart, we're at the end of the road, I don't hate him, he doesn't hate me. And then they get into the hands of the wrong attorney, and suddenly they're at each other's throat fighting over a photo album. It's crazy.
Well, first of all, I would say put your ear to not the grindstone. I put your ear out there. You want to hear what people are saying about what attorneys. There are attorneys who are known for litigation, and frankly, that was my reputation. I wasn't the attorney that you hired if you wanted to settle. My mentor was an attorney who fought, and so that was my training. And as a matter of fact, my last year in practice in New Jersey, I tried 20 cases, that's an awful lot. So there are more attorneys.
How could you stand it? All that fighting, couples bickering, oh my God.
I moved to Colorado and got admitted there.
The only thing worse would be a marriage counselor. Like, who signs up for that gig? Marriage counseling.
My mom's a marriage counselor, so I don't know. I guess it was a genetic thing. But really, what you want to do is you want to keep your ears open for the reputation of various attorneys. Some attorneys are litigators, and they're really comfortable in court, and they take very difficult cases where you've got to do a lot of discovery to find out where the money is. But there are also attorneys that you know can settle a case. And then, of course, we can talk about ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution, and those things are arbitration or mediation or collaborative divorce. You need attorneys for those, but they're a friendlier way of ending your marriage, of resolving your matter, of custom tailoring your final agreement so that it's suited for you and that both people walk away not as winners, because divorce is a sad thing, but certainly not as losers.
One thing that people find very awkward when they go in to see an attorney is talking price, because you don't want to embarrass yourself, and you don't want to insult an attorney, but how do you talk price?
Are we talking about what the attorney will cost you?
Yes.
Okay, well, the attorneys have no shyness whatsoever about talking price, so they can alleviate that.
So they don't mind if you walk in and say, hey, let's get down to the facts.
Oh, absolutely not.
What does this cost? Because there are attorneys that are, it's like 3 cars on the lot, There's the introductory car, there's the mid-size, and then there's the deluxe.
Well, you're talking about, again, what is the reputation of the attorney that you're going to see. There are top-level attorneys, and you know that they're going to be top dollar, because when you're making an appointment with that attorney, you're probably going to ask, what is the cost for an initial consultation? Some attorneys do that for free, but many do not, and there's a reason for that. I talk about that in the book, and that's poisoning the attorneys. So you will generally ask, what is the hourly cost of the attorney? So if it's $400, you're getting an upper level attorney. Okay. If it's $200, you're probably not. Isn't that awful? $200, you're probably not.
So then you say, how many hours will take?
Well, that's the tricky part, because in a divorce, you have no control over the other side. You'll be dealing with the one party, the husband or the wife, and you don't know how the spouse is going to react, so you really never know what this litigation or mediation or settlement is going to turn into. So what generally happens is you can say to the attorney, here are my assets. Look, my husband or my wife has a W-2 income. I have a W-2 income.
Kind of give them the scope.
To give them the scope. So there's no discovery. We know what our assets are. We have a house. We have a pension plan. There's nothing exotic. We don't have children that we're going to be take over.
He kind of knows the ballpark of the amount of work it's going to take.
That's right. And he or she, being the attorney, is going to say, well, I need a retainer. Because like plastic surgeons, we get our money up front because no one's ever happy afterwards. Right. No one's ever completely satisfied. So from what you tell the attorney will say, well, I think this maybe should be handled within $500 to $7,500, so I'd like a $5,000 retainer. Now, even if you have income that everybody knows it's a W-2, but you have kids that you're going to fight over, that can turn into a battle royale. And people ask me, well, what do you mean? And I refer them to Patricia Duff and Ronald Perlman, who 3 years ago, I don't know if you recall, the Wall Street Journal reported spent in excess of $6 million in attorneys and experts fees fighting over 3.5-year-old Kaylee.
Yes,
so
it was highly publicized.
When you're getting into custody, all bets are off because it's irrational. You're fighting over something. Well, King Solomon couldn't handle it very well. Well, I guess he did handle it well. But barring that type of wisdom, it's very difficult to resolve that.
I occasionally see ads for divorce. I'm sure you're familiar with them. $299, no additional signature needed, or spouses. What is that about?
That's really dangerous. Well, first of all, I believe these centers are under investigation for practicing law without a license. So I think there's a problem with those. I don't want to get sued, so I don't know, but I believe I've read that there's a problem with that. These are places that I think help you file your papers.
I see.
And I believe they tell you that you shouldn't be doing this if there are any issues and if there are any children. So I think it works best for people who are maybe married under 5 years, have nothing, have no children, and simply need to file the complaint for divorce and get the final decree.
The people that had a bad night in Vegas, those couples.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Now,
the Lisa Marie, Nick Cage kind of
two-day wedding.
Right,
and
two-day
that's
wedding,
it.
3-day divorce.
So be wary.
Be
of
wary.
those
You
things.
get what you pay for, really, because there are so many critical things that you must do with the divorce. Because if we could just take a minute, support is always modifiable after the fact. So after you get your judgment of divorce, it's always subject to change if you have a substantial change in circumstances.
Lose a job,
illness, whatever. Your kids grow, they need more money. Now, when you divide property, that's it. It's over. You can't come back. So if you forget the pension plan or the retirement benefits that your husband got from the military, you're done. If you don't get that qualified domestic relations order, you're done. So you really have to be careful when you're getting divorced, that you do identify all of the assets, you value those assets, and you get them distributed.
So if it is something that you've been thinking about, when you go to the attorney, you really should have a real understanding of where everything is.
Right.
Now, there are still some old-fashioned traditional marriages that
Yes.
when they break up, in
Yes.
many cases, the woman may not know where
Right.
bank accounts are
Right.
or if there is hidden money.
Right.
How does an attorney find out and help the client?
Well, in the book, when I talk about, I think it's chapter 2, what you do with an attorney, I have a list of things that you want to gather before you go see an attorney. And the most important document, if you get your hands on it, is the tax return, because someone who's not initiated to financial things might not realize there's a whole bunch of information in that tax return that an attorney can pick up from the different schedules that are filed. But if you don't have any kind of information or access to those types of documents, what you want to do is tell the attorney, what was your standard of living? Because that's really a key concept here for everybody who's getting divorced. New Jersey, California, and by the way, New Jersey is a leading state in family law, just like California is, and Wisconsin, and New York and Massachusetts.
Well, that's good to know.
So it's good to know. We're very progressive, and we've got a wonderful judiciary, and so other states look to us. And the marital standard of living is really a key thing. So what you want to do, if you can't show what the money is or where it's going, tell the attorney that you go to Europe to ski. Tell the attorney that you shop on Madison Avenue, and the attorney will get an idea of what the money flow is, what the cash flow is, and from that he can work backward as to where that's coming from. The attorney has all sorts of avenues available to him or her, including private investigators, the internet, but basically subpoena power, releases. Don't worry, if there's been cash somewhere, you can document it. It might not be as easy with a as with a W-2, but it can be
found.
It can be found out. It just will cost you a little bit more. And
With computers today, you can find out just about anything.
Absolutely, and also with forensic accountants. They go in, if your husband has a practice or a corporation, they can see what's what. They can see customer lists and all sorts of things.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. If you are strapped for cash,
yes,
there are agencies that could help you, and there are resources for people to find.
Now, when you say strapped for cash, are you talking about...
If you don't have the money to get an attorney, or you're having difficulty, finding an attorney that you can afford?
Yes, in New Jersey, and this is also on my website, there is a special department of the state bar which provides help for people who are indigents or people with a low level, and there's a sliding scale. And that information happens to be on the Jersey page of my website. So yes, but those agencies are having a very hard time right now because budget cuts are terrible, and it's taking its toll on these types of services.
I wanted to make sure to ask, because I would hate for anybody to stay in a very bad situation because they're afraid of not being able to pay an attorney, and that's
okay,
really
sure.
important.
Legal services is available, and they will help people. But another thing I want to make clear, if they're in a bad marriage, and I mean abusive marriage, there's all sorts of help under the domestic violence laws. And I would suggest anybody who's having that kind of problem, call the national hotline, which is 1-800-SAFE, S-A-F-E, which I think is, I want to say 7233, but just it's S-A-F-E. Look it on your telephone.
Great, great. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Marlene Browne. The book is The Divorce Process, Empowerment Through Knowledge. Now, there's quite a few helpful sections here.
Thank you.
If you are thinking about getting married,
yes,
or you're thinking about getting married again, And there are ways to protect yourself,
Sure.
male or female,
Right.
going into a marriage. A lot of people are getting married later in life. They now have more assets available. What are some of the things you suggest in your book, The Divorce Process, for planning ahead?
Okay, well, first of all, take stock of what you have. And as we were talking before the cameras rolled, New Jersey is, it's a wonderful state for many reasons, but one of the convenient things about New Jersey, it's a dual classification state, which means that even without a prenuptial agreement, that which you have before the date of your marriage is yours. It's your separate property, unless you gift it over to your spouse. Or
So I can keep my old record collection.
unless you gift it over to your putative spouse, yes, the Jim Croce,
Label
Bob
everything.
Dylan.
Label everything.
Well, that helps logistically, but legally it would still be yours unless you said, dear so-and-so, here's my blood on the tracks. So New Jersey, New York are states, California, another state, where if you have delineated what is yours before the marriage and you keep it separate, that's going to remain yours. So you can feel pretty safe that that's going to happen. Now, if you have a bank account and you put it in your beloved soon-to-be husband's name, that's now going to be joint because it's
And
seen
also
as if you gifted it.
Go to a shrink and get your head examined.
Well, you could do that too. But I just want to make the point that if you moved up into Connecticut, that's not the case. It's an all-property state called a kitchen sink state. Same thing with Massachusetts. I'm licensed in Massachusetts.
So investigate.
So investigate. If you're going to be moving, watch out, because it could be that what you thought would be safe and separate is really marital.
What about really getting to know someone? I mean, if you're gun
That's
shy.
beyond my area of expertise. I'm a divorce lawyer, so.
If you're gun shy, you've been married before, perhaps.
Yes.
You know, there are things that you could do to make sure that he is the person you're marrying, right? Check him out.
Check him out. That goes a little bit beyond my expertise as a divorce lawyer, but you certainly want to make sure that you're not making a mistake. The statistics most recently from the Center for Disease Control, which is kind of funny that they keep track of these things, are that 43% of all first-time marriages end by divorce by year 15. The percentage is higher with second marriages. I believe it's almost 60%. So if you've been divorced once, it's not a good indicator for you having success the second time around.
Or be cautious going in. Where do you draw the line, though, between being well-planned, protecting yourself,
right,
and planning for disaster? I mean, that's a terrible way to live. I mean, is there no romance left? You're planning for disaster?
Well, it depends on when you present the prenuptial. You can have a wonderful dinner beforehand.
It could be a positive experience.
It can be a positive thing, really. If you're getting married as an older person, I'm an older person, I'm not 23,
second, third, fourth
or
time.
whatever, right? If you're a serial marrier, it just pays not to go through the divorce process over and over. Hopefully, you don't have to use the document, but it just puts everyone's mind at ease. Plus, you've got disclosure, and that's a good thing. If you want the protection of a prenuptial, well, you've got the obligation and the duty to disclose everything that you have.
Protects both parties.
So it protects both parties.
Sure.
And particularly the children, if you've got children from the prior marriage, because you want those children to have some protection. You don't want your second spouse getting all of the assets if you have children and you want to give them a legacy.
Oh, sure. And that's a perfect reason to do it.
Absolutely.
Who does a prenuptial agreement? Is it a divorce attorney?
Well, I will be getting married soon, and no, I won't have a prenuptial, so I guess I'm an optimist. But
I mean, would you go to a divorce attorney for a prenuptial, or do you go to a family lawyer special?
Well,
I don't know what the specialty is.
Yeah, a divorce lawyer, family lawyer, domestic relations lawyer, that's all the same thing for a divorce lawyer. But yes, you see a family lawyer, and family lawyers deal with prenuptials all the time. In New Jersey, there's specifically, there's a law that says we in New Jersey think that prenups are good, and we're going to enforce them so long as they meet the criteria, which is full disclosure, person having an adequate time to look at everything, so it's not, for example, handed to you the minute you're walking down the aisle. That wouldn't be a good thing.
No.
So long as you meet the requirements, New Jersey is going to say, we think they're okay. And most states say that it's a good thing to have a prenuptial agreement.
Now, children and children of divorce,
Right.
In fact, we'll have to have you back, and we'll do a whole show about children and custody issues.
Right.
But how do you protect your children through this process? And should they be involved in the process at all?
No, they should not be involved in the process at all. And in my book, I relate to there's a website, and I don't remember it, but the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, the AAML.org, if you want to go to that, they have a posting and I believe it was one of the columnists. I don't remember if it was Dear Abby or whomever, I just don't remember. But she wrote a wonderful column that we divorce attorneys refer to over and over and over about the things you want to remember when you're divorcing and not to do with your kids and to do with your kids. Number one, make them feel secure, make them know this was not their fault, make them know that you are not abandoning them, regardless if you're the one who's leaving or not leaving. Make them know that they had nothing to do with this. They are not the reason you're divorcing. And you just want to reassure them that they will be loved and that they will be secure and that their life, yes, it's going to change. It's going to change from one thing to another, but the constancy of the love and support of the parents will be there. And of course, do not involve them in the action itself.
I've
Don't
seen
ask
it
Daddy
happen.
for the check through the kids. It's not a good thing.
I've seen it happen. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about mediation. This seems to be the buzzword right now.
Yes.
Mediation.
Mediation.
What is that?
Mediation and collaborative divorce. Let me start with mediation. Mediation is when two people hire a mediator. Now that mediator doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer, although often a mediator is a lawyer. And that mediator isn't always trained. You've got to be careful. There are various agencies in New Jersey that do train mediators, but that's not true for every state. So, but in New Jersey you can check to see if a mediator has been trained. Mm-hmm. And that mediator has been trained, hopefully, to facilitate a settlement between the parties. Now the parties should also have attorneys through this process. So it's like a shuttle diplomacy kind of thing. The wife has an attorney, the husband has an attorney. They both see and learn about their legal rights through their respective attorneys and then come back to the mediator with, look, this is what I think I want. Can I get this? The mediator then tries to work with both parties.
Sounds
and then
civilized.
They go back to the lawyers. But you have to be careful. Mediation is not going to work if both parties aren't really dedicated to the process, because if one party has a lot of power and the other person doesn't, be it economic or emotional, it's not going to work. And if there's any abuse involved,
and if there's intimidation,
it's not going to
work.
work. Now this collaborative divorce, which is the newest buzzword, it started in the Midwest, and it's really not taking hold in New Jersey so much. It's very popular in Colorado, very popular in California. Not so popular here yet, but that's when you don't have a mediator in the middle, but you do, each person has an attorney, and they work together to facilitate a settlement. But those attorneys, as part of their agreement, will not go to court under any circumstances. So if you don't work out your settlement with these collaborative attorneys, you have to start new with divorce litigation attorneys.
I see. So there's an incentive.
There's an incentive, right, exactly.
Fabulous. Now, there's lots of things get complicated, and certainly we'll have you back and we'll focus on children in custody in a future show, because that I'm sure we can spend a whole show on. But,
or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, life is fluid. Things change.
Yes.
Kids
the only
get
constant
older.
is change, right.
Then they go to college or want to go to college,
right.
and or a wedding.
Right.
And then things get sticky again. You know, when if they're younger and you get a divorce, you can have that all figured out. Then suddenly things like college choice, who pays for college,
right.
who pays for the wedding. Is that negotiated earlier in the divorce, or is that a fluid thing too?
Well, it's yes and no. It's a fluid thing. First, about weddings. Unless the parties agree that one or the other is going to be responsible for a wedding, no court's going to order that. So that's not something that if you go to court, a judge is going to order someone to pay for a wedding. No, that's outside of what would be someone's responsibility, because it's an emancipating event.
I see.
Getting married is when you stop with the child, so you're not going to have to pay for the wedding. But many people do agree in their agreements that they will share the cost for a wedding. Moreover, they also agree often that one or the other will make out a provision in one or the other's will so that the kids get an inheritance. And in fact, on my website, I have a link to Jack Welch's affidavit that he filed in that infamous case.
Well, that's how we found out how much money he had.
Precisely, and I have a link to that if anybody's interested. And in that, he shows a provision where in his first divorce in 1987, 1986, he is obligated now to leave half of his assets to his kids from his first marriage. Mm-hmm. So you can always agree to that. College in New Jersey, I used to get so many questions about this when I would be
I hear so many people fighting about
Well,
it.
in New Jersey, it's ruled by a case called Newberg versus Arrigo. It's a 1982 Supreme Court case. It's on my website. You see the 12 factors. So that's something a court can order parents to pay for, and it's not not limited to the cost of, let's say, Rutgers or a New Jersey school. It's according to those 12 factors. So you want to look at those 12 factors because that's what a court would do if it came down to it.
Sure. Well, I think that people have to realize that in a divorce there is something, in many cases, of an economic hardship, and things, maybe you can't go to Cornell, maybe you can't go to Villanova, maybe it has to be a state school.
Right.
And that should really be protected for both parties and for the children.
Well, again, that's one of the factors in these 12 factors. What is the ability of the parent to pay? What is the ability of the child to pay? What is the child's ability to bring something like a Pell Grant or whatever to the table to help pay? But again, the court has these 12 factors that it has to look at. So I would suggest if your audience has that question, go to Divorce Process, which is my website, and go to the Jersey page, and they will find that. And the 12 factors are listed, as well as a recent case applying those 12 factors, because that's what a judge would do.
Well, the book is The Divorce Process, Empowerment Through Knowledge. And Marlene, I have to ask you, is it rewarding being in the field of divorce? I mean, it must be exhausting.
It has its moments.
I bet it does.
I've helped some people. I've gotten some hate mail. It all balances out.
And a divorce attorney that is willing to be married?
Yes, yes.
There must be something good about it.
Well, you know, one tries not to get too cynical. One tries to rise above and be optimistic and hopeful. But
well, I hope that we can have you back again, because I really would like to talk about child custody, because that is just such a complicated matter.
Yes, it is.
And such an emotional matter that we maybe can focus right on there. And is there another book coming?
Yes, but I can't talk about it yet.
And is it about divorce?
Yes.
There's a lot to write.
There's a lot to
There's
write.
a lot. Well, it's been delightful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good luck on the book. And thank you for joining us. There's always room for a good conversation.